Have you ever heard of the cobra effect? The story goes that one time back during the days of the British Raj, the imperial government was getting worried about the number of venomous cobras in Delhi. So someone had the bright idea to offer a bounty for every dead cobra. And for a while, it seemed like the plan had worked. People handed in hundreds, thousands of dead snakes. But cobra numbers in Delhi didn't seem to be going down. If anything, it seemed like there were more of them slithering around. Turns out, people hadn't just been hunting cobras down, they'd been breeding them for the bounty. Seeing this, the British ended the bounty program and the cobra breeders set loose their farms. And so, despite that seemingly sensible bounty program, a program designed specifically to track and reward cobra culling, in the end, there were more cobras than ever. Admittedly, the historical foundation of this parable is a little shaky, but there are plenty of similar, better attested cases. Rats in Hanoi, feral pigs in the US state of Georgia. And true or not, it's a good representation of what economists call a perverse incentive. That is, an incentive structure that might be set up to produce desirable results on paper, but gives undesirable results in reality. Boiling down a situation this complex, one combining biology, geography, culture, money, and so on into one variable, one performance indicator, was always going to be tricky. Proxy data rarely tells the whole story, and sometimes you are just measuring the wrong thing. Last month, as I write this, Netflix made public a batch of their viewership data for the first half of 2024. And guess what the most viewed film across their whole platform was? Was it one of the big hit films they licensed, maybe? Minions, Boss Baby, Super Mario Bros.? No, it was the Netflix original Millie Bobby Brown vehicle, Damsel. When I read this, I had two responses. The first was, who'da thought? The second was, oh shit, I've watched that. The word slop gets thrown around a lot these days. Often the term's simply used towards products or media seen as lazy or soulless. But increasingly, I think an idea that slop is more than a broad pejorative seems to be spreading. You sometimes see or hear people discussing slop content, disappointing franchise movies, forgettable streaming shows, online videos, and a range of other media forms, as though the term denotes something specific, something beyond simple laziness or poor quality, something that unites medium after medium. If this is the case then, if a new meaning is emerging, what makes something slop? And why is slop bad? Damsel offers as good a place to start as any, I think. Spoilers, by the way. Do we need a spoiler warning for Damsel? The film offers a standard fantasy template with a twist. Our protagonist, Princess Elodie, voyages to a faraway overseas kingdom to marry a prince for the sake of her people, before being betrayed by the prince and his family and sacrificed to a dragon. Elodie manages to escape, but it turns out the dragon's a victim of these royals too, so by the film's end, they do revenge together.
Is do revenge even, correct grammar?
Now, that summary doesn't quite do justice to the film. Obviously, I'm underselling it by compressing it down into 2 sentences, but this is Netflix slop. That seems to be the consensus. But why? Well, the film's an obviously commercial one, but that can't be the answer, or at least it can't be the whole answer. In most cases at present, commercial interest has to coexist with art, or at least mass market art. This alone does not slop make. Movie marketing, TV ads, or case in point, hey, this video is sponsored by ClickUp. Between researching, planning, and filming deep dives into pop culture and entertainment, life can get busy. As much as I love creating for YouTube, the constant deadlines and endless to-do lists can feel overwhelming. When there's always another project or idea waiting in line, it's easy to lose track if you don't have a plan or structure in place. That's where today's video sponsor ClickUp comes in. ClickUp is the ultimate all-in-one productivity app, loaded with features like calendars, charts, documents, checklists, and so much more. It's made for anyone who needs to organize their life, whether you're a content creator like me, juggling multiple video projects, or a busy professional handling client work and deadlines. I've been using it since August, and it's honestly like having a second brain. ClickUp helps me keep my video projects and schedules under control. Every video has its own tasks, timelines, and due dates, so I know exactly what stage I'm at with each project. Getting started on a new project is so much easier when you have a well laid out plan right in front of you. And the best part, you can customize it to look as cool or simple as you want. If you're not sure where to start, you can jump in with one of ClickUp's many pre-built templates and get moving right away. Whether you're a content creator like me or just trying to get organized and feel less overwhelmed, ClickUp can help keep you on track, and it's made for everyone. When used right, it can save you tons of time and let you focus on what matters most, so take control of your projects and let ClickUp help you get more done. Head to tryclickup.co/pillarofgarbage to get started for free. Thanks again to ClickUp for sponsoring, and now back to the video. Commercial interest very often has to coexist with art. If slop simply referred to the profit incentive, Damsel would be slop, but so would The Substance, so would Casablanca. There's more to it than that. It isn't simply that a film like Damsel is commercial, is hyper-accessible, it's the way in which that hyper-accessibility is achieved. Because Damsel is a movie that takes care not to lose any of its viewers, even if they're barely watching it. If any of you here now can remember watching Damsel, comment down below. Let us know if you did so while also on your phone or doing the dishes or, something like that. No, don't feel bad. You're actually engaging with the film in the way Netflix wants you to. Netflix's interest in second screenability did the rounds last year, but it's definitely worth recapping here. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, actor, writer, director, and producer Justine Bateman spilled a whole bunch of industry tea, which I'll quote a little of here. "I've heard from showrunners who are given notes from the streamers that this isn't second screen enough, meaning the viewer's primary screen is their phone and the laptop, and they don't want anything on your show to distract them from their primary screen, because if they get distracted, they might look up, be confused, and go turn it off. I heard somebody use this term before. They want a visual muzak." And while this isn't information Netflix willingly put out themselves, their chief product officer has sort of corroborated it, claiming a major focus for them is figuring out how to better integrate using their phone app to the process of watching stuff on another device. Which seems like a wild idea to me, but unspoken here is an admission by the streamer that they're already making content for viewers to not pay attention to. In a video on another recent Netflix film, Uglies, YouTuber Pinely notes the way the information within that movie's opening exposition is just given again in the following minutes.
You got the useless exposition. I say useless because it genuinely serves no use. I think less than 10 minutes into the movie, they just give out the same information again.
During the time of the Rusties, dependence on fossil fuel decimated the Earth, which resulted in division, conflict, and their ultimate collapse.
Here, we see the second screen directive in action, the extreme handholding these projects engage in to make sure you can make the plot out even while you're vacuuming. Hey, plug opportunity. If you've already watched that video, why not sign up to a Patreon or YouTube membership and watch my video on the film for even more Uglies analysis? Because after all, the real dystopia is me not having enough money. You should give me money. I'm gonna hold you upside down and shake until the pennies fall out and rattle on the ground. Though not quite as extreme, it is similar in Damsel. As the film introduces us to the woes of Elodie's kingdom, for instance, we can't simply use the visual context clues to determine it's rough out there. It's made explicit repeatedly.
Floria, our people are freezing and starving.
Elodie, why are they leaving? There's nothing left for them here, Floria.
Our stores are empty. We will not make it to the thaw.
It's generally true throughout the film that any important visual information is also given audibly. It is a very second screenable movie. It is made better if you watch it. There are some well-directed sequences at its best. This movie is horror dressed up in the trappings of fantasy, but weirdly for a movie, you don't have to pay that much attention. On one level, it is finely tuned background noise, to the point that while it is a movie, as a headline from Vulture claims, it feels like a fake movie. Sorry, no, they actually wrote that about another recent high-profile Netflix original, The Adam Project. Thing is, The Adam Project isn't bad, and neither is Damsel. Not bad, Madam Web bad at least. Characters have functional arcs, effects generally look decent, there are even a few good performances, fun lines, that sort of thing. They're not bad, they're just watchable, effortlessly, too watchable, hence those numbers. Netflix has indicated in the past that broadly they understand success in these terms. More viewers, more view time is straightforwardly what they're after, influences what future content they produce and the ways they produce it. Projects like Damsel or The Adam Project or Red Notice or that other one from the year before that I know did well for Netflix by similar metrics but whose name I literally cannot remember, are counted as wins for the streamer, victories whose numbers correspond directly to the continued value and and viability of their platform. It's even been reported that Netflix's data algorithms play a significant role in determining what projects the streamer greenlights. These data points equal success. Oh shit, it's the Grey Man. I was thinking of the Grey Man. We might term this digital economism. Standard economism, of course, referring to the habit neoliberal economists have of, as Cory Doctorow puts it, claiming their opponents' goals are too squishy and qualitative to ever be properly judged, while boiling their own down to crisp, objective data. The laser focusing in on a handful of KPIs, taking views and watch hours as stable, straightforward stand-ins for content effectiveness. The result of this digital economism, in Netflix's case, has been the pursuit of watchability. Not necessarily at the expense of quality, but certainly above it. The second screenability, the filing down of rough edges, and the broad, generic, already familiar genre and setting conventions that allow Netflix's algorithm to seamlessly serve an action fan Extraction, a rom-com fan Players, and yes, a fantasy fan Damsel. In the age of the algorithm, the more polished and frictionless something is, the more it gets viewed. And this is obviously a principle that's applicable across a wide spectrum of media. Any popheads in the audience might have recognized a similar recent trend in the mainstream music world. High-profile pop artists tending to release shorter, more easily digestible albums. YouTube's busiest music nerd Anthony Fantano spoke on this shift in a recent-ish video on Camila Cabello's latest release.
It's a mess, it's lopsided, it's inconsistent, it is such a nothing burger, and it also kind of makes me reflect on like this greater trend that I'm seeing outside of this record, where it just kind of seems like a lot of very popular, very viral, very mainstream artists are not putting all that much effort into the quality of their albums, most likely because there's not really a whole lot of incentive to do so. I think that's pretty much where a record like this comes from. I think that's where a record like the new Ice Spice comes from. I think that's where also the new attempt at a summer jam Imagine Dragons album comes from. Because your appeal and success as an artist is no longer fully dependent on whether or not the album you come together with is actually quality or replayable or memorable in any form or fashion. It's really more about, can we create a silly, viral, ridiculous, discussable moment that is polarizing in some way on the internet? Or like in the case of Imagine Dragons, can we do something that is so bland and background and playlistable that we squeeze out a track or two that are just like very plain, agreeable summer jams, while the rest of this very short album we barely put any effort into just kind of gets, flushed down the drain. Because whatever, if we make any money on this thing, it's going to be not through people buying it, but streaming it.
Primarily then, Fantano is highlighting the way these shorter runtime, quicker turnaround, hyper-accessible projects in targeting algorithms and playlist ability prioritize these metrics above quality and longevity, but within Fantano's trend also lies the other part of the slop equation. To reveal it, let's flip back to Netflix. Something I, along with I think literally every other video essayist on this platform, have discussed before, is the shifting quality and philosophy behind Netflix's originals that's observable between the early and late 2010s. To begin with, when the company hadn't long pivoted from mailing discs to online streaming, the focus wasn't on cranking content out, so much as it was proving made-for-streaming projects could be worth a viewer's time and money, just as much as the traditional films and shows Netflix made its name licensing. To this end, they threw real money at real names and let them cook, gave them far more episodes and seasons than a Netflix show today typically would, hence House of Cards, BoJack Horseman, Orange is the New Black, and that wave of still beloved Netflix originals, hence the first Netflix original film being the multiple award-winning Beasts of No Nation. In short, the plan worked. The audience grew and grew. I'm pretty sure the first thing I watched on Netflix was Daredevil, a great show that started out toward the end of this prestige push. But while Netflix needed to go above and beyond to start convincing that audience to establish the service's value, to sell it to the world as the platform for on-demand streaming, once it managed that, the assignment changed. Per The Wrap, according to a source in the world of Netflix animation, the streamer's goal was, at one point, to be the home of everyone's favorite show, but at some point that changed. Now, the goal is producing what everyone wants to see. That is, the internal direction shifted from producing stuff that would attract and enamor users to producing stuff that these now captured users would be up for watching. From creating interest, hype, value, to maintaining it, and exploiting those retained users. A lot of people signed up for Netflix to watch a specific thing or things, and years later remain paying members because they continue to use the service, continue to spend enough of their free time watching what's put in front of them that the hassle of replacing that membership with something else never quite seems worth it. Those numbers don't lie. Hundreds of millions watched Damsel. And that is partly because content like Damsel lends itself to frictionless algorithmic mass watching, but it's also because the existing attachment viewers have to the casts the stream is able to assemble, the remaining ubiquity of the Netflix membership, and the residual unconscious buy-in users feel toward that algorithm mean the film isn't starting from zero. These are not views Damsel would have amassed had the picture been in cinemas from an unknown production company, if its lead hadn't been catapulted to stardom by a previous, better Netflix project. If one aspect of slop content is digital economism, the other is a reliance on already existing, already captured value. And that's just as visible on this platform as it is on Netflix. A video from YouTuber Raymundo2112 went viral a few weeks ago, arguing for and examining the slop problem here. It's a wide-ranging discussion of various low-effort YouTube practices, but early in the video, Raymundo describes the React stream reupload genre like this.
Another genre of commentary slop is stream clips. These stream clip videos generally consist of a content creator who's already grown a sizable audience on their main channel, where they put a lot more effort into their content. This has led them to grow a loyal fan base who will just kind of watch anything they do. This leads them to live stream either on Twitch or YouTube. Those streams, who are then often multiple hours in length, get chopped up into different segments per topic, given some minimal editing, and then shipped out as a fresh video.
Raymundo ended up taking the original video down after receiving an amount of negative pushback to the way he characterized some types of content. That clip's from a revised version he put out not long ago, in which a lot of criticisms are softened and a lot of caveats are added. But regardless of how delicately the processes behind this, the preeminent form of YouTube slop, are described, we can see a direct mirror to the Netflix trajectory, channels who have built up fanbases authentically before coasting on that inbuilt parasociality to sustain traffic despite diminishing returns. Across media forms then, reliance on existing, already captured value emerges as a hallmark of slop content. In the case of Fantano's albums, the existing value being wrung out, time and time again, is the pop act's existing brand, fanbase, musical prestige. Note Fantano's examples, all coming from acts who have already broken through. Records like Y2K and Loom get pushed to enough folks to occasion moments of artificial virality or algorithmic self-sustainability, not on the strength of their track lists, but on the strength of the projects that built Ice Spice and Imagine Dragons platforms, and the goodwill generated by a devotee spinning Munch or Shots for the 100th time. Digital economism and reliance on already captured value, captive audiences being fed slop, aiming for playlist ability, algorithmic recommendation over personal affinity, aim shifting from those things the numbers seem to stand in for, quality, interest, connection, a sense of worth, to simply those numbers themselves. So many bounties, so many cobras. And once you start to notice these patterns, you see them everywhere. TV, YouTube, music, even video games. Look, I'm gonna bring up Counter-Strike again. I'm sorry, I know that's like 3 projects in a row where this game's come up for some reason, but yeah. Last month I made a mini essay for the Essay Library's latest collaborative video, link down below, and one thing my contribution touched on was the bizarrely slow pace of content updates and bug fixes to Valve's flagship shooter Counter-Strike 2 in the year since its release. Despite that, I still play the game pretty regularly. I am often contributing to the game's concurrent player count statistic that most community figures and probably Valve, their famously secretive, use to judge the game's health at a glance, even as glitches go months without being fixed, as FPS counts seem to drop with every update, and as those updates focus more and more on cosmetics, a new loot box here, a new monetization system there. Buy 5 battle passes at once. These used to give you badges, used to allow access to missions, used to come alongside a spate of new maps, but hey, now you can buy 5 at once! The sequel still possesses far fewer game modes and maps than its predecessor Global Offensive did 1 year back, when that game was replaced by CS2, and it was replaced. The new game released as an update to the old one. Indeed, Counter-Strike's cosmetics seem to be the reason CS2 rolled out in the way that it did. Splitting the game's player base across 2 versions would have destroyed the skin economy, removing a large part of the incentive to open the game's many loot boxes. The loot boxes that reportedly made Valve around $1 billion last year alone. And it worked. The skin economy powers on. The Counter-Strike gambling epidemic continues, those player stats are still there too. As such, to the guys at the Valve office with the clipboards, there is no reason to change up their approach. Put some more of that money back into the game, expand the dev team, fix the bugs, bring Cobble back. The stats are still there, and despite its frankly disappointing state, I am still among them. Not because of the value created in this past year, but because of the value CS2 retained from the franchise's past, its bones, its culture, the very close resemblance to the better game I fell in love with nearly 10 years ago. That's what Slop is to me. It's a film gripping enough to hold your attention during movie night, but not so gripping that you have to focus on it, or that it sticks around afterward, makes you think. One that's got enough marketable names in the cast and a broad enough premise that a good percentage of the people whose homepage you throw it on will check it out. It's an album that sticks within previously successful sonic parameters that you wrote in the studio with established pop hitmakers that wouldn't win you an audience today, but might appeal to enough of your existing fans to squeeze out some algorithmic traction and to justify another world tour. It's a bugged, mechanically inferior, infrequently updated sequel game that's close enough to maintain a pre-existing monetized player base. And crucially, it's doing all this again and again because it spat out a number that still looks good. To speak of Slop is to speak of the diminishing returns that process produces and disguises. And it's also to recognize, implicitly, that that disguising doesn't work forever. Because I am still playing Counter-Strike, but were I 15 now? Had the franchise been in this state back in 2015, I don't think I would have got hooked in the same way. I don't think I would still be playing a decade later. Where exactly is that in the data? Already captured value can be retained for a while, can be squeezed again and again, but it doesn't last forever. And we don't even have to look a decade into the future of Counter-Strike to see this. You see this sentiment all the time in today's gaming space. People sick of poor launches or greedy DLC practices cashing out their emotional investment in a game or franchise. And I can tell you firsthand that the same's true in wider Slop contexts. That Fantana video I brought up earlier mentioned Imagine Dragons' latest album Loom as one of those Slop summer albums. And you don't have to compare that album's streams with those of the band's prior projects to see that for a lot of listeners this was the slop that broke the camel's back. No. I can tell you that myself. I'm about to say something that will utterly destroy any credibility I may hold on this platform. I'm an Imagine Dragons fan. Kind of. At least I used to be. To this day, I'll die on the hill that their first 2 albums, as well as the handful of EPs and singles from that period and before, are pretty good. I think their debut was one of the first albums I bought on iTunes. I remember pre-ordering the follow-up Smoke and Mirrors while waiting for the school bus one day, and this became a little tradition of mine. Over the next few years, even as I got more and more interested in other bands, other styles of music, even as my listening habit shifted away from iTunes and toward whichever streamer was running the best student discount that month, I'd still log back on and pre-order each new Imagine Dragons album. But Smoke and Mirrors, that second album, despite fleshing the band's sound out, trying a couple of different things, didn't sell too well, and none of the singles came close to being radioactive, numerically speaking. Perhaps as a result, there's a real sense of artistic backtracking you get listening to their next few projects. Simplicity and the then trendy sonic minimalism became the name of the game. Album tracks get weaker, vocal and instrumental styles lose their idiosyncrasies. To start with, at least, as memories of radioactive demons on top of the world were freshish in the minds of the public, as the band's doubling down on their loud, quiet, shout chorus, clattery drum formula continued to sound vaguely zeitgeisty, the hits continued. Less and less, though. And there'd always be 1, 2, maybe 3 good cuts per album, but that'd be it. And after their last disappointing project, after altogether too many years of saying, oh, this band I used to love put out a new single, maybe this time it'll be a step back up, I belatedly put my little pre-order tradition to bed. I did not buy Loom before hearing it, and I certainly didn't buy it after listening. That existing captured value had finally leaked all the way out. The songs were still making their way into my Spotify playlists. Up until this latest album, I'd still been buying every project. On paper, I was still engaging. I still play CS2, and I will, right up until the moment the bugs get too much or the frame rate drops too much, and I say that's it, I'm done. Sell my inventory and start doing something else with my time, like a bunch of my friends have done in recent months. I watched Damsel and a bunch of other stuff on Netflix this year. I had one of those cheaper add-on accounts to an existing household that Netflix used to ease the transition out of account sharing, but a few weeks ago I talked to my parents and heard they don't get enough use out of the streamer to justify their subscription, so my grandfathered-in price point is set to disappear. Now I'll have to pay a higher price than ever for less than ever. Am I going to renew? Sure, eventually. Probably. I needed to grab footage for this video if nothing else, but the fact that I watched Damsel, Uglies, etc. doesn't make me any more likely to. If anything, it makes me less. In all of these cases, I'm a watch, a play, a buy, a win on paper, up until the minute I'm not, for good. Millions of people watching Damsel doesn't mean millions of people watched Damsel and enjoyed it. It doesn't mean it reaffirmed Netflix as a good service, as worth an ever-rising price to anyone. It just means people watched it. And the same qualities that made it so watchable to so many, its bland, inoffensive, algorithmically optimized, value-ringing nature, also made it slip through our systems, without bothering us, without being bad enough to turn off, sure, but without being there enough to remember having watched. A cinematic ghost shit. And yet, it did its job. It handed in a bumper haul of Cobra tales. The analytics are probably good enough for the streamer to have already greenlit a whole new crop of Damsel core content that'll be watched by countless people and leave no mark. Views, watch time, plays, players, units moved, these do not correspond in any direct one-to-one way with enjoyment, connection, long-term satisfaction. The reality these things stand in for is squishy and qualitative. Too squishy and qualitative to be represented straightforwardly by any dataset, which isn't to say that attempting to measure by proxy is pointless, but which is to say that you shouldn't forget you are measuring by proxy. Making stuff that people can watch while they do other stuff makes it more likely they'll leave it on, finish the film, furnish the guys at Netflix HQ with whatever their equivalent of the YouTube big green watch time arrows are, but if you're designing films for people not to watch, you're designing films those bored Instagram Reels scrolling viewers aren't going to value enough to retain their membership next time you stick a bunch of ads in or hike up the price. A system designed for watch time isn't a system producing the best stuff, or even the stuff that'll best keep people around. It's just a system producing watch time, or playlist appearances, or concurrent players. Seemingly sensible schemes, producing success after success on paper. And that's great, until you go outside and Loom sucks and CS2 is still bugged to hell and parents are cancelling streaming subscriptions and there's fucking cobras everywhere. As we wrap up, it's probably worth clarifying a few things. Slop, in this sense, isn't a value judgment. It doesn't necessarily mean bad or unenjoyable. Based on my criteria, CS2 is a slop sequel, but also, there still is no feeling quite like pulling off a nuts clutch, even if your frames per second are low and the game's wider content remains anemic.
Nice. I'm fucking gaming. Holy shit.
Slop isn't necessarily a binary thing either. I mentioned Daredevil as an example of good, non-slop, valuable, attractive Netflix content, but obviously it is a Marvel adaptation. It exploits the already existing captured value of brand recognition and attachment to a specific established character. And even if it does seem this show predates Netflix's habit of using watch time data to algorithmically determine content strategy, predates the second screen directive, the streamer was presumably still aiming for lots of views. There is a sloppiness to Daredevil then. The edges of the slop principle do become hazy the closer you look. Is an original sci-fi work slop in part because it's capitalizing on an audience's existing familiarity with and affinity for inherited genre tropes? Maybe. I don't know. So maybe there's a slop spectrum. Or maybe it's a question of ratio. Maybe things like Andor, Daredevil, or more recently, Agatha All Along stop being slop by ending having elevated that initial existing value. Maybe there are forms that lend themselves to slop content but don't necessarily confer slop status. Consider that TikTok era short, digestible, playlistable album form we've been seeing more and more of. Yes, there's Loom, there's CXOXO, there's Y2K, but that label also fits something like Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet, which I don't think is slop. As the title suggests, there's a self-awareness with Carpenter's album, a knowing effort to make this snappy, poppy format work for the album as well as for the algorithm. Also, the songs are good. Carpenter came into the album cycle as a far smaller name, who used that form to generate value, not to exploit that which she already had. Slop, conceptualized in this way then, is not a binary thing, is not an exact thing, is certainly not an objective thing, and is an idea almost impossible to apply even semi-accurately from an outside perspective. As I'm sure you've noticed, this video is full of speculation, but I'm making it because I feel, on balance, there's maybe something here, the rough outline of an idea that's more good than bad. So slop as formulated here remains a loose model to be provisionally applied, to be considered when judging digital art today, and perhaps to be borne in mind while creating it. That's the end of the slop video. Hope you got something out of it. Thanks to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters for helping me make stuff like this. Join up yourself if you want to see the latest bonus video along with 20 others. I think this one's maybe one of my best. And super special thanks to Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Magath, Something Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. Zhao Hong Shu!